It's Friday, August 14th. In the headlines, water restrictions take effect August 17, and the Met Service tracks 2 tropical waves developing in the Atlantic. In business news, the Bank of Jamaica says on Thursday, the US dollar ended trading at $158.22, down by 65 cents. Regionally, in Antigua and Barbuda, Parliament approves visiting security forces bill for Commonwealth meeting. And in sports Minister Olivia Grange says Jamaica hosting the 2031 Women's World Cup will boost girls' participation in football. This is the weekend news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. We begin this newscast with a weather update. The Meteorological Service of Jamaica is monitoring 2 tropical waves moving across the Atlantic and approaching the Caribbean, with one showing some potential for development into a tropical depression within the next 24 hours. Principal Director of the Meteorological Service Branch, Evan Thompson, said the system is expected to weaken after entering the Caribbean over the weekend and could pass near Jamaica by Monday, August 17. While the system is expected to bring rainfall to sections of the island, Mr. Thompson said it is not expected to strengthen into a tropical storm or hurricane as it approaches Jamaica. He is encouraging the public to monitor updates from the Meteorological Service of Jamaica and other official sources as these systems develop. Next Monday, August 17, water prohibition orders will take effect across 7 parishes as the government moves to protect Jamaica's water supplies amid low rainfall and persistently high temperatures. Speaking during the JIS's ministerial interview, Minister of Water, Environment and Climate Change, Matthew Samuda, urged Jamaicans to reduce non-essential water use. Minister Samuda says rainfall in eastern parishes has remained below a 30-year average since April, with conditions worsening in July.
The climate has changed. Our weather patterns have shifted. We are exposed to extremes that our infrastructure was never designed to manage. And you're going to have periods of challenge. And in those periods, we have to have frank discussions with our citizens to say this is a challenge that we face. And we do have to bring it down to literally essential activity at this juncture.
Despite a forecast of rainfall next Monday, he says the Meteorological Service is forecasting hotter and drier conditions over the next 3 weeks, making conservation particularly important as more than 900 schools prepare to reopen.
Now, when your 900 plus schools open up in 3 weeks and children invariably forget to turn off pipes at their school and the water usage from these institutions, which is heavy, becomes a factor, then you're going to see a faster rate of depletion from your storage thing. So if we don't start to conserve now, it could put our critical infrastructure at risk if the forecast doesn't change in September.
The restrictions will apply to Kingston, St. Andrew, St. Thomas, St. Mary, Portland, St. Anne, and St. Catherine, and will remain in effect until further notice. With drier conditions and warmer temperatures expected, Jamaicans are being urged to conserve water. Officials warn that with rainfall declining further, restrictions on non-essential water use will take effect, while the government prepares additional drought response measures. We hear more in part 2 of this Jamaica Information Service feature.
recognize that we had 10 of our 13 parishes. I'm saying 13 because Kingston and St. Andrew is considered one parish in this respect. And so we have 13 areas, regions that we're monitoring, and they all received rainfall in varying degrees during the month of June. 10 of 13 actually were experiencing below normal rainfall. And when we speak about normal rainfall, we're talking about the 30-year average, and this is from 1991 to 2020. So that 30-year period is what is defining our climatological mean or our climatological normal, and we assess in comparison with that period from month to month. The drought conditions are being experienced in just 4 of our parishes so far. At the end of June, St. Elizabeth, St. James, St. Anne, and St. Mary were the parishes that were determined to be experiencing drought conditions. One of the main reasons for the dry conditions, yes, we do have climate change to talk about, but climate variability is one of the things that generally impacts us on a regular basis. And one of those variabilities in the climate has to do with the El Nino phenomenon. The El Nino actually was generated in June, at the early part of June, and we see that it has continued to get stronger and stronger going through July, and this is expected to continue that trend. It will continue to strengthen going through to the end of the year and even into the first quarter of next year at least. It doesn't mean we will have no rainfall. It just means that the number of incidents of rainfall will be fewer.
The NWC provides water to over 550,000 customers using an average of, say, 4 persons per household, which is what a customer represents for us. That's just about 2.2 million persons on the island. From those, out of that, we actually utilize just about 450 sources. And I want you to follow me now. So 450 sources, 2/3 of those are what you call surface sources, rivers or springs. A number of those sources now are actually showing signs of decline, especially in the parishes of St. Mary and Portland, some sections of St. Anne, and also what we call East Rural, West Rural, KSA, all right? Now, we've narrowed down even further, just about 133 of that system, which are historically prone to drought or water supply decline. We are now looking at 73 in particular, spread across the island, which are already showing decline ranging from 20% drops to some as much as 80% drops. We have started regulations, which means restricted water supply or what you call scheduled water supply. But let us talk you through what is necessary for the immediate and why these restrictions would come into play. So one of the things we do in terms of moving water to you to keep your communities, your homes, your businesses active is what we call water supply transfer. So for instance, in the Kingston metropolitan area, there is an interconnection between the Constant Spring network on the western side of the city. The Mona network converges with it just about where the Ministry of Justice is, West Kings House Road. And there's also an interconnection along the boulevard where we transfer water from our St. Catherine systems into the city. Those supply also along the Spanish Town Road belt. So that is the kind of active water supply management where once we are beginning to see a decline with one system, we then move as best as possible to augment those supplies with whichever system can allow us a little buffer.
The National Water Commission wishes to advise its customers that its customer care email service, customercare@nwc.com.jm, is now back in operation. The NWC, in a statement to the press, explains that customers may resume sending queries and requests via email. The agency says it's working to clear the backlog of emails received while the service was unavailable. It says customers may also access NWC's web chat via their website at nwcjamaica.com. You can also contact the NWC through the toll-free line at 888-CALL-NWC. That's 888-225-5692. Or you can use the NWC's mobile app. Artificial intelligence is becoming a bigger part of how we work, learn, and create. But while some see AI as a tool that sparks new ideas, others worry it may be making us less creative and more dependent. In this week's Unfiltered, Chanel Matthews hits the streets to hear from Jamaicans. Is AI making us more creative or just making us lazy?
I am Chanel Matthews and this is Unfiltered. With the rise of artificial intelligence, many people are questioning its impact. Do you think AI is helping us to be more creative or lazy?
I'll say AI both. Reason for that is sometimes if you want to know, if you're doing something and you want to know how to do it, you can go to AI like ChatGPT and find out more information, and it makes you wiser. But on the other hand, watching these AI short series can waste your time and make you lazy. For me, example, I'll sit on it all day and watch the Nigerian short stories and waste out my day.
I believe that AI has both its pros and cons. It just depends on what you want from it. So if you're going it knowing that you want just additional information and you're not going in it for it to, whatever I tell you, you believe it off the bat, it depends on what you want it for. So I guess it's both. But for me, I use it in the medical field, but not 100% I don't rely on it. I have my own background knowledge and I just want to see how creative or what they can come up with in the short span of time for me to sum everything together.
More lazy car. AI make things more easier for you. You know, make you use your brain or them thing there. So you're gonna look it up and you look up something for AI and then by later you forget it. That's not it.
A mixture of the two. Sometimes the AI, we can put our ideas in and it can just generate a few things that we probably wasn't thinking about, but at the same time it can have its negative effect where it doesn't allow you to sit and become creative because now everything is at your fingertips. So I think it's a mix of the two, and I do believe that it will be a more of balancing the two versus one versus the other.
I think it generally depends on the person, because overall, like, you wouldn't say certain technology like the calculator made us more lazy, for example. The calculator allow you to, outsource the lower level calculations, and then you can think about the deeper, bigger picture things. So it can be the same thing for AI, whereas you can utilize AI to get the basics, and then when it comes to more creative, more advanced thinking, you can at least allocate more time to that when you save time with the basics using AI.
Most people, AI make them lazy because them get it easier for done. When you find time to do things by yourself and figure out the puzzle, AI make you do it too quick.
Alright, I think it's helping us to be creative in much different ways, because it can help us improve on our studies, and it can help us to give us more ideas instead of us overall being at home not doing anything. AI give us more opportunities, more visionaries. So to me, it helps us be more creative.
Time now for the business report.
Welcome to today's Business Report. I'm Denise Williams, bringing you the developments shaping markets, capital access, and business decision-making across Jamaica and the region. Let's get into the stories that matter. Sherwin-Williams paint manufacturer has closed its manufacturing operations at its St. Catherine facility as the company restructures its operations in Jamaica. The company says the closure at the end of July is part of a review of its business operations and long-term strategy and is not related to the performance of the St. Catherine facility. Following the closure, Sherwin-Williams will transition to a distribution-only model in Jamaica, with distribution continuing from its facilities in St. Catherine and Montego Bay. The Bank of Jamaica says demand for US dollars significantly exceeded the amount supplied to banks and cambios participating in the foreign exchange market on Thursday morning. The BOJ supplied US 40 million, while banks and cambios sought US 109 million to meet the needs of their clients, resulting in a $69 million US shortfall. Analysts say the gap could prompt another intervention by the central bank on Friday as it seeks to reduce the backlog. The BOJ says the strongest demand came from the National Commercial Bank Jamaica, which purchased the US $6.69 million. The interventions are aimed at easing pressure on the Jamaican dollar and helping to contain inflation. For the trading period of August 12, 2026, the most actively traded securities were Trans-Jamaica Highway Limited with 14,526,160 units, representing 39.59% of market sales. Dollar Financial Services Limited with 3,883,203 units, representing 10.58% of market sales. Woodcats International Limited shares with 2,387,854 units, representing 6.51% of market sales. Investor activity remained concentrated in distribution and transportation plays, signaling continued interest in dividend-producing and strategic assets. Turning to the foreign exchange market based on Bank of Jamaica data for August 13, 2026. Forex traders recorded significant activity with strong demands across major currencies. For the US dollar, trading margins reflected steady liquidity, with the US selling at $158.23 and buying at $157.48. For the Canadian dollar, moderate gains supported by 33 cents transaction spreads. The Canadian dollar sold for $114.40 and was bought for $114.07. For the British pound, continued volatility offered short-term trading opportunities of $4.09 in profits for the banks. The British pound was sold for $214.19 and was bought for $210.10. These movements underscore the importance of cash flow timing and currency awareness for businesses managing import costs, debt servicing, or overseas exposure. For the credit report tip of the day, when you are over 50 and rebuilding your credit, stop thinking like a consumer. One of the biggest mistakes I see after 50 is treating credit repair as the end goal. It isn't. Credit worthiness is about access to a mortgage, access to business financing, access to investment opportunities, access to better financial terms. From a banking perspective, I want to see whether you've moved from financial survival to financial control. That means paying obligations consistently, reducing expensive debt, keeping credit utilization under control, maintaining documented income, building cash reserves, understanding exactly how much debt you can afford. And don't obsess over the credit score alone. A strong credit score doesn't automatically make you a stronger borrower. The real question is, if I lend you money today, what evidence do I have that you can repay me tomorrow? After 50, your financial strategy should be less about borrowing to consume and more about becoming financially positioned to acquire, invest, build, and create income. Your next chapter may require capital. Start building the credit worthiness to access it now. And that's today's business report. I'm Denise Williams. Until next time, stay informed, stay intentional, and keep building forward. See you soon.
regional news. In Antigua and Barbuda, Parliament has passed the Visiting Forces Bill 2026, creating a legal framework for foreign military and security personnel who will be brought in to assist with security for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The country is preparing to make history in November as the smallest country ever to host the event. ABS News' Alicia George explains what the new law allows.
Antigua and Barbuda is getting ready to host CHOGM. It is the smallest country ever to host one of the Commonwealth's biggest gatherings. And that means increased foreign military and security personnel working alongside our own forces.
But if something goes wrong, who has the power to investigate, prosecute, and hold a Foreign Service member accountable? That is one of the key questions addressed by the Visiting Forces Bill. And the answer is, it depends.
Now, in most cases, if a Foreign Service member commits an offense while in Antigua and Barbuda, the courts here have primary jurisdiction. But the new law says there are exceptions.
If the alleged offense involves the security or property of the foreign country or another member of its force, the Foreign Military Court can have primary jurisdiction, and either side can waive that right, allowing the other country to deal with the case.
The bill also sets out when foreign personnel can be arrested. The Defense Force here has the authority to arrest and hand them over once their own military gives permission.
But the bigger issue is immunity. Foreign personnel are protected from local, criminal, and civil proceedings for actions carried out as part of their official duties. That does not mean they are automatically above the law. But if Antigua and Barbuda wants to prosecute or take civil action over an act covered by that immunity, the foreign government would have to waive it. The bill also allows visiting personnel to carry firearms, ammunition, and explosives while performing their duties, provided they have been authorized to do so by their own service authorities. And what if a member of the public is injured or property is damaged? The bill provides a process for compensation claims. But it also places limits on directly enforcing judgments against foreign personnel for actions carried out in their official capacity. There are also special rules for deaths involving visiting force personnel. In certain circumstances, a local coroner must suspend an inquest unless the Justice Minister directs otherwise. Foreign forces can bring equipment and supplies into Antigua and Barbuda without paying duty or tax. So the Visiting Forces Bill creates a legal framework for foreign military and security personnel to operate here.
But it also creates clear distinction between local and foreign jurisdiction, and in some cases gives foreign personnel immunity for actions carried out during their official duties. Alicia George for ABS News.
Trinidad and Tobago is stepping up efforts to achieve its 2030 climate targets with a new report outlining strategies to help cut greenhouse gas emissions and advance the country toward net zero. The report, launched by the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, the Environmental Management Authority, and the British High Commission, also highlights opportunities for new industries, sustainable jobs, and greater economic resilience.
Achieving net zero in Trinidad and Tobago means cutting greenhouse gas emissions down to as close to zero as possible. Under the Paris Agreement, TNT has formal nationally determined contributions. One of them is reducing public greenhouse gas emissions by 15% by the year 2030. On Wednesday, the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, the Environmental Management Authority, and the British High Commission launched a report to guide TNT toward that goal. Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, Sanjay Singh, noted that the push toward net zero presents an opportunity.
The transition to a low-carbon economy should not be viewed as an obstacle to development, rather a catalyst for economic transformation, innovation, competitiveness, and resilience. This presents opportunities to create new industries to generate sustainable employment, strengthen food security, and improve resource efficiencies to enhance the quality of life for all citizens.
Britain's High Commissioner to TNT, John Dean, shared a significant finding from the report.
These reports, in collaboration with the Ministry of Planning and the EMA, is part of that wider partnership. What makes the reports particularly valuable is that they start from a position of opportunity. As they outline, Trinidad and Tobago already has significant natural assets in its forests, wetlands and ecosystems, which remove more carbon from the atmosphere than the sector emits.
Chief Executive Officer of Consulting Engineers Associates Limited, Ryan Roper, the organization which compiled the report and made recommendations, noted that there is a recommendation for a mission commander to lead the thrust.
His or her role is to ensure that the entrepreneurs are guided by the policy, not just policy, by the mission board's priorities, so that they get a level of certainty that when they go into this business, Trinidad and Tobago is in it for the long haul, and that gives the commercial venture scalability and sustainability.
The report is expected to help shape policies and strategies aimed at reducing emissions, strengthening environmental sustainability, and advancing the country's climate goals.
In sports, Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Olivia Grange, says Jamaica's hosting of matches in the 2031 FIFA Women's World Cup will inspire greater participation by girls in sport while delivering wider social and economic benefits. Speaking at this week's signing of the Guarantee Agreement for Jamaica's hosting obligations, Minister Grange said the tournament will promote gender equality, strengthen national pride and unity, create jobs, and boost tourism. Jamaica is expected to host 3 to 5 group stage matches and 1 round of 32 fixture. Minister Grange said the matches will also generate economic activity through increased visitor arrivals and local spending, while providing valuable international media exposure for Jamaica. In cricket news, the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots celebrated their first win of the CPL season in Match 5, and afterwards both captains reflected on the game. Here's more from Wayne Cunningham.
Despite a loss for Captain Roston Chase and the St. Lucia Kings in the CPL encounter with the St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots, there were some bright sparks with 50s from Kamil Puran and Jubal Andrew, which will give the franchise hope going forward.
Yeah, we have a really young unit, probably the youngest unit in CPL right now. So for those young guys to stand out after having a bad start like that and really show their class, I thought it was a good batting performance by them. But as I said, I just thought that we were 30-35 runs. I thought if one of them could have taken it a bit deeper, it would have helped us, but well played to them.
The winning captain, Jason Holder, was pleased with his team's performance, especially the bowling.
I thought we played some good cricket. Obviously, on a pitch like this, expect them to really hone in on the power play. But we were able to get 2 new ball wickets, which was crucial. And then, they got away a little bit from us, but then we ended up pegging it back, and we did a really good job at the back end. So credit to all our bowlers.
For the run chase, Johnson Charles and Andre Fletcher were their normal swashbuckling selves, which the captain does not mind.
Look, it's hard to tell people like Johnson and Fletcher how to play their game. They've been pretty confident and they've been pretty consistent over the years playing that type of cricket. So we backed them to play that type of cricket. Fortunately for us today, they got off to a really good start. And then Kyle came in and kept the tempo, which was really important for us. We were able to, keep on top of the scoring rate. We were always in the game or ahead of the game in terms of the run chase. Which is crucial when we're trying to chase these runs.
As they head to Jamaica, Holder sees room for improvement, especially in the fielding department.
Look, I think our energy in the field could have been a little bit better. We probably could have made 1 or 2 half chances, stick. But that's part of cricket,
Wayne Cunningham, TTT Sports.
And that's the weekend news. On PBCJ, you can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thanks for watching.